Often it just takes a reframing in your mind. I think one of these things I often hear is that, I don't have enough money. I can't deal with budgeting, all these kind of things. And um, so first of all, I don't, I mean, we went through a whole budgeting thing for a while, but it worked kind of, but it didn't really because we were just living our life anyways. The biggest thing that sort of frames and helps us deal with things and stay within a budget, which, mind you, after many years now of working, it's a lot easier. We have a lot more wiggle room, but often it just requires us to reframe just how we think about things at any given time. So, me and my family, and it often means going through a very strong negotiation. Um, but a lot of it has to do with just looking at the world completely differently. I think, a lot of us think that we have to live very, very expensively, have all of the latest stuff, make sure that you're always getting the most recent, um, make sure you always have the best quality, all of these kind of things. But we live in a day and age, I don't think most people understand this, but we live in a day and age where we can likely get things of far better quality than we ever could have for far less money. And the reason why that is because we have far more open trade. We have a lot of sort of economic things that are going on that allow us to get things that are very, very inexpensive. But what has happened over the course of many years and decades, we've kind of changed our beliefs in how things actually work and what they look like. A simple example of that is just look at the number of clothes that we actually have. Many, many years ago, if you had maybe one or two pairs of anything, you're doing quite well, right? Before the 1930s or 40s, you just had one pair, one thing. And now many of us have multiple things, multiple t-shirts. You can get them extremely inexpensively now at this moment. Um, but all of this often requires us to completely change our mind and how we deal with the things that are at our fingertips. Very often we get caught up, and it's very difficult for us to deal with sort of things that deal with money because there's two big forces that are often going on in our minds. First one is this tremendous amount of marketing that we don't even consciously understand that we're being marketed to often. These people are extraordinarily smart that are marketing to you. They're the top people in many of the schools that you see often go into these kind of positions. Smartest people, and they often have a lot of education, and they're they're thinking about how to design things so it's sticky. Right? I teach that kind of stuff. How do you deal with, or how do you ensure that people continue to do this? Right? How do you get people to believe that they really, really passionately want something? These are questions that they deal with every day. And they're very, very smart in getting people to believe that. 'Cause there's all sorts of people, even most of the social sciences, if you look at it, often results from the work that's being going on in business schools. So we're very, very marketing. We're very focused on consumers and focused on how people behave. And we're really trying to get them to do things. That's the first thing, often. Um, the second thing that we forget about is that we are constantly thinking, we're constantly thinking and discounting all of the tacit things that are at our fingertips. And we're thinking that these things are not real and we can't measure them. And so what we think about them is well, the stuff that is very that's very what's called more codified or non-tacit. Basically, the idea is that you can touch it, you can feel it. There's often in codified. Sorry, it's there's a set of instructions, so you could just feel it, and it's at your fingertips. Sorry, I'm stumbling because I, for some reason, I forgot the opposite word of tacit, but basically, you could feel it, you could see it, you understand it. And if you could do that, then you think it's real, right? I think that this is the default thing. Actually a problem with a lot of social science, a problem with a lot of science. So you think if you see it, you think it's real. And anything that you can't feel, the sort of tacit, the invisible, you don't think it's real. And we have a problem. We don't know how to evaluate those things very well. Or things like love, things like compassion, things like culture, um, things like anger, right? These things often, they're emotions or sort of invisible things that we know exist, but you can't really explain it really well. And if you were to talk to a scientist and tell them what love is, they even can't really explain it that well. Like kind of a vague definition of, what is peace, for example. All of these things. It's often very difficult to understand these things. And what we have a tendency to do, because we can't feel or touch or see it, we kind of feel it, but kind of not. But because we can't do that, we think that they don't exist. We think that they're invisible. And because of that, even if we know we're believers, we're true believers, right? And all of those kind of things, then even if you are, there's somebody else that discounts it. And so what we end up doing is devaluing all of those things that we can't see, we can't put a number on, and we can't really quantify in any sort of way. And because of that, we often look past them and we think that they're not important. But here's the thing, my experience, and I think that there's many people that would, many smart people, many researchers around the world would probably agree with me. Even the people that sort of started thinking about tacit understanding and tacit knowledge, Polanyi, that those are the things that have the most amount of value. Those are the things that matter the most. And those are the things that actually make you feel better inside. And they make you completely more whole. They make you understand the world in a completely different way. And they give you a tremendous amount of pleasure and pain. But they give you something that is often missing. And with these two things, these two sort of factors that are going on, is the constant bombardment that you should actually pursue something from other people trying to persuade you. That's not what marketing is. It's people trying to persuade you. And so they use all of the social tricks that we know as social scientists play to our heartstrings. Social comparison, making you feel like you're a failure, behind, you know, um, framing things as a competition, all of those things. And if you think that people in education don't do that, you're absolutely mistaken. They're perhaps some of the worst offenders of this to get you to buy their products. So you got that one side, and then you got the other side where the things that we get the most amount of value from, we often can't touch, we can't put a feeling on, we can't even see it. With that compounding, we completely neglect the most important things. And we focus on the things that we can quantify, or we can tell to other people, this is what we actually have. And everybody should be impressed by this thing. Often in this day and age, it's a bigger home, a bigger domicile. It doesn't matter if it's an apartment or not apartment or house. People can see that. It's things like a car. But all of the things, it's really fascinating. All of the things that many of us would think are real, to give us the most amount of pleasure is working on your relationships, having a cup of tea with a friend. All of these things, and perhaps more important, don't cost hardly anything. A walk. All of these things are very inexpensive. And yet we think we don't value them, or we don't value them, or we think that they're kind of useless stuff. And if you just change your mind and you view the world a little bit differently and try not to listen to the marketers as much, and I know that's hard because I get tripped up all of the time, just like you, and you try to focus on the things that are less quantifiable, the things that are invisible, but are real, building up stability, working on things that give you passion that nobody else understands. All of those things, if you work on those things and you stop focusing on the things that are quantifiable and that you are somehow demonstrating to other people, the better off that you will be. And you won't even need to deal with a budget. You won't even need to deal with finances and all that kind of stuff that people want you to think about. Now, here's the other rub that's fascinating to me. Here's the thing that's fascinating. And this is the thing that I was thinking about at the beginning, is that financial instruments that actually move the needle, things like index funds and all that kind of stuff that I talk about, mutual funds, really boring things. Nobody can see them other than you. And it's only a number. And so once you work on all of those things, I told you about those two things, trying to really not get enticed by the marketers, realizing that you have enough. And then as well, valuing the things that are invisible a little bit more, or maybe a little bit less if it's causing you pain, but thinking about how to manage that in some way. And when you do those two things, you're able to build up the things that are invisible, things that help you move the needle, working on your family and friends. If you can work on those things, then the other stuff naturally comes anyways. So once you realize that you don't have to play by the games that people tell you to play by, you simply just have to smile, keep going, take one more step, try to get pleasure out of the journey rather than thinking that you need to have all of this stuff. Your life just changes. And all of a sudden you feel a sense of stability that you've never felt before. Even though stability is an invisible thing that nobody understands, you can't put your finger on. It's all made up. But you have to figure out how to do this on your own, one little day at a time. And as you do that, these two bigger things turn into the things that matter in your life becomes something that you would have dreamed about 10 or 20 years earlier. Take care. Have a wonderful day.